It's very early in the morning, and I'm supposed to be getting ready to go do stuff all weekend. But the drama on trading card game Twitter, TCG Twitter, is crazy right now. Specifically, Hearthstone Twitter has been blowing up with on-chain gaming drama. That's right. On-chain gaming games with NFTs are really starting to take over the TCG world. It's slow, but it's faster than I thought. And this is the big one of the big examples. So I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I think it's Tice, if I'm not mistaken. I used to watch this guy back in the day, like 8, 9 years ago, when I would play Hearthstone just as a casual player. He is one of the biggest Hearthstone streamers for almost a decade, and he has become a parallel ambassador, as well as having done a sponsored stream for Neon Heroes, which is more of an Overwatch style on-chain game. Now, Tice is not the only one. We also saw Tyler randomly getting his gym shots there when I click over, but TylerOOTD, retired Hearthstone pro, and in his profile it says future parallel TCG world champ. I watched him play parallel on stream before I went to sleep, and then I woke up and he was still streaming. He played parallel for like 8.5 hours one day recently, streaming, which is a pretty big stream for someone who is a pro gamer who isn't like on the come up. He's already made it. These pro streamers don't do 8 hours on a random sponsor game just to be nice. That's not how it works. So seeing him do 8 hours was pretty big. And these are just two examples. There's been a lot of Hearthstone pros, from the biggest of the big dogs down to the more like middle class, couple hundred viewers type of folks, which we'll look at an example of someone in that category in a minute who had an interaction with a Hearthstone dev. Lots of creators and pro players in Hearthstone are starting to break towards on-chain gaming, and it's different this time because last cycle we never had anyone nearly as big as Tice, who again, one of the biggest Hearthstone streamers, like top 3 type biggest, not like, oh, he gets a raid once in a while. No, he is the big dog. You know what I'm saying? And there was no one like this 3 years ago, last cycle, defending crypto gaming to the mainstream audience. It was not a thing. And yet now, in response to criticism, Tice has no problem defending himself and standing up to some extent for crypto gaming. Let's quickly read through this. He said, I think it's important we have to talk about this stuff. I see a lot of comments, which makes sense to me. The scene a few years ago was very undeveloped, full of scams, etc. Some influencers were selfish with how they benefited from it, and it's still somewhat the case. But in between all of this, he thinks there are some good projects, games, and people wanting to do more for their communities than current non-Web3 games do. He says, I think it's still very in the beginning, and the scene has to get rid of, quote unquote, some of the concepts they imply. So maybe some of the like overly speculative or quote unquote scammy stuff that some people kind of worry about. But he also sees some of the games being very motivated to make amazing games for their communities and specifically let them benefit more from it than the non-Web3 games. And this is a really good point. No starting scene is perfect from the start. The esports scene wasn't different 10 years ago with teams full of scams. Now it's a very professional scene, and the bad apples are mainly out. So, one more, then he talks about parallel and stuff, which we don't have to read everything, but one more is just this one, which is exactly what I've experienced doing my Gods Unchained giveaways and stuff. He says, with real life cards, you are able to always gift, trade, or sell your cards, and I've liked that ever since I was a kid, he says. With Magic, you can do this. Why is it for the online version of Hearthstone, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not possible? He would love to gift Hearthstone cards and packs to viewers. Also, he thinks it's unfortunate when you don't play and you spent lots of money on your account, you can't even gift it to anyone. So, really, really like significant defense from Tice. And this is the kind of thread that we have been waiting, and we're seeing lots of different people more and more in different genres with bigger audiences who aren't just coming out of the crypto scene. More and more people from the mainstream trad gaming communities starting to be willing to stand up for on-chain gaming once they realize how much of a fundamental improvement it is, how much of a fairer system, and how much better the monetization is for the creators and the pro players. As people have that wake-up moment, they're starting to get more and more willing to step out. And a lot of it is because the space has just come a long way. I was thinking about this. There's like as far as major on-chain TCGs, the ones that like people are playing and talking about that have any kind of like real sustainable community, there's basically no scams left. Like all the scams washed out a few years ago. There's tons of scams elsewhere in crypto. The entire meme coin idea, the whole meme coin thing is basically a giant gambling scam. I hate meme coins, so I'll acknowledge there's plenty of bullshit in crypto. But on-chain TCGs, there really aren't like a bunch of scams. Like what game? Let me think of all the games I can think of that have anyone playing them. So what? Gods Unchained, Parallel, Axie Origin, Axie Classic, Rainy, Champions, Goon Wars, of course, Cross the Ages. I mean, there's so many more that I'm not, Ape Iron, if I'm pronouncing that right, over from Ronin. And there's many more, right? But like that's like 10 of them, 10 of the biggest ones. And none of those are scams. Like all of those are real games that have economies that are pretty similar to traditional game economies, except you can just resell the stuff or gift it in the future. Like that's a lot of games that are legit. The whole on-chain TCG space is pretty fucking legit now. Like we are kind of like a cycle ahead of the other games. I'm sure in a couple years there'll be a lot of good FPS and like shooter type content, hero shooters, FPSs, extraction shooters. Like that's a few years away. MMOs maybe 5 to 7 years. Like we're getting there, but on-chain TCGs are getting there now. And I've said this for a long time that the gaming community, the on-chain gaming community, needs to give a lot more respect to the card games and stop saying, oh my God, all these card games are dumb. And this is why that's the case. This is why you need to have some respect for card games, even if you don't want to play them personally or not very much, because we're making this shit like possible to have these discussions in the mainstream. Now, one more example I want to give is BabyBear. So BabyBear has been a fellow sponsored creator partner with Champions TCG along with myself, so I've gotten to talk to her a few times. And she's a perfect example of a Hearthstone, like middle class type creator. She has hundreds of viewers. She's been playing the game professionally for like 8 years. And she's lately been doing on-chain gaming stuff. Her as well as I believe her partner John Bray, who are both pro creators. And so she recently had a post. She's been talking a lot about how she like enjoys the Champions and the new on-chain gaming and Hearthstone sometimes not being as exciting, but specifically this was the thread where the other person actually made their account private because they got tired of the heat. But she shared her experience with having some issues with Hearthstone, and one of the devs posted basically like, imagine saying this while you support scam games. It was something like that. I forget the exact wording, but it was like, imagine posting this about Hearthstone while also, working with a bunch of scams. It was something like that. And so she said, imagine playing and supporting Hearthstone for 8 years only to get this reply from a dev after I shared my experience about an on-chain game, Champions TCG. And this, like, actually got a little bit of traction. I mean, 30,000 views almost. Champions was posting about it a bunch. It kind of continued to stoke up this discussion in another, little area of the Hearthstone community. And, you can see the discussion. I think that post from Raven was referencing that Parallel game that looks like an NFT scam. I could be wrong, though. And BabyBear responds, I've played Parallel as well and don't see them as a scam. Someone says, I wouldn't take it negative on the entire game just because of one dev, which is true. I don't think all of Hearthstone or the entire Hearthstone team should be responsible because of one dev's comments any more than everyone who plays a game that I'm working with should be responsible if I say something stupid. I don't think that's how it should work. But still, BabyBear responds, it's a matter of respect. Don't appreciate being accused of scamming people when I didn't do that. And then, dude, this is a good one, right? I mean, this dude looks like he has a PFP, but this is a great, so he's probably a crypto guy, but not denying crypto is rife with scams, but how is Web3 asset ownership on a card game a bad thing? Loved Hearthstone, stopped playing it because I didn't want to spend $100 every few months for decks, which I hate to break it to you, Web3 card games are still kind of expensive, but at least you could have sold old cards for new ones in theory. Card games always suck, though. They're always going to be expensive. It just... I don't think on-chain games solve everything, but yeah, Spike, 10 years ago, people said free-to-play was a scam. Now everyone does it. Same will be the case. So it's just, we're seeing more and more of these conversations and more, like, it's the arguments against on-chain gaming are so bad now. Like, Like, final point I want to make is that the arguments against on-chain gaming when it comes to card games are pathetic. Like, there's no arguments left. People basically, like, the main anti-on-chain TCG argument is all crypto is a scam, you fucking moron, how stupid could you be? Like, that's the argument. Oh, it's all a scam, duh. Like, the whole argument is just going, it's a scam, duh. Like, that's the whole argument. I could make a more steel-manned argument, but I won't even bother here, because, like, people aren't even trying. Like, I could make a better argument against crypto gaming than the critics. At this point, they're literally just saying, like, crypto's a little awkward, there were some scams, there are some scams, not all of it's good, therefore, no one should be allowed to use it. It's like, what the fuck? Like, if you applied that same standard to the internet, we would have no internet today. So it's really interesting that, like, you know, people just, honestly, the anti-crypto people, when it comes to the card games, they just sound really dumb. Which is why I posted this really fiery tweet, which I'll leave you guys with this. These brain-dead Hearthstone devs are truly astonishing. They aren't mad that you can buy cards. They're only mad you can trade and sell them. To them, the only acceptable option is to buy cards from Blizzard, Wizards of the Coast, and Second Dinner, Marvel Snap, with no ownership. Giving them all of your hard-earned money, great. Having any meaningful ownership, they say, fuck that, it's a scam. What a brain-dead opinion. You should be embarrassed right now, if you're arguing against on-chain TCGs. Your entire pro scene is migrating into the on-chain world, and they are not coming back. You lose. And then a little flux moment here. Stop gargling Blizzard's entire nutsack and think about what the fuck you're saying. On-chain games are eating the trading card game world, and I love to see it. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, y'all. I'm out of here. Flux signing out.